Good afternoon. It is 4:32 on February 21st. You are in the Criminal Justice Full Committee. If that's an error, there's 3 other committee rooms out there. So, Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Representatives Campbell, Carringer, Davis, Doggett, Farmer, Fritz, Glenn, Hardaway, Howell, Johnson, Lamberth, Moody, Russell, Sherrill, Towns, Vice Chairman Gillespie, Chairman Holsey.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any personal orders from anybody on the committee? No personal orders. All right. We don't have a real long calendar today, but we will start. First up is House Bill 290 by Chairman Kiesling. Chairman, you have a motion and a chairman, sir. You are recognized.
I'm honored, sir. Thank you, Chairman. We appreciate that. The House Bill 290 it is relative to our diversion application fee, which currently is in existence. You may recall during Governor Lee's first year in office, he called for and the state legislature unanimously passed the elimination of the state expungement fee. We recognize that by removing financial barriers, we can help first-time offenders get their life back on track. Well, this bill would eliminate the $100 application fee for our diversionary program. There's two types of programs, of course, the pretrial and the judicial. Both are used to give defendants a chance to avoid criminal record. Simply stating, upon a criminal defendant's request for diversion, the defendant must pay the $100 in order to obtain the application, and then a document completed further by the TBI as prerequisite. Many of you were in, of course, sub. So that's it, Mr. Chairman. Pretty much to surmise this. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you or the committee may have, sir.
We have a motion to move for previous question. Is there any objection? All right, we are voting on House Bill 290. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, it moves on to finance.
Thank you very much, sir.
Have a fine day.
Thank you.
If you get to Toot and Carry, New Mexico, you wave for me, would you?
I certainly will. I'll watch for those hombres out there.
All right. All right, next is House Bill 75, and it very well may be taken by Leader Lamberth. Go ahead.
Motion. Second. Third.
You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there's an amendment that's traveling with this, coded 3309.
Motion on the amendment. There's a motion on the amendment, a second on the amendment 3309. That's what I have. You need to explain the amendment first, or you want to wait?
Mr. Chairman, whichever you prefer.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote and put it on the bill, and then we can discuss the bill. All those in favor of amendment 3309 say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill. Okay, Leader, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As amended, this bill makes it crystal clear that law enforcement and district attorneys have discretion on whether or not to grant immunity to those that may call in an overdose. We want to encourage folks to do that at every possible opportunity. And in most circumstances, they will be granted immunity, and that is a good thing. In some circumstances, the facts may be that they would not, but this gives law enforcement and the district attorneys discretion in that situation.
All right, you heard the next explanation of the bill. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're voting on House Bill, I just forgot it, 75. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. It moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the committee, and happy birthday, Scotty Campbell.
All right, we are on House Bill 384 by Chairman Boyd. 484, I'm sorry.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Chairman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. It's great to see you today. And so, members, as you know, the theft of catalytic converters around the country and in Tennessee has become something of an epidemic, and it has gone up 2- and 3-fold over the last few years, and it's affected many of our constituents. And so, while we were out of session, I put together a task force, and I met with members of the TBI, the Department of Safety, the Department of Commerce and Insurance, the Scrap Dealers Association, the sheriffs, and the district attorneys, and tried to figure out what we needed to do to put an end to this or to curtail it. And the feedback unanimously from all of those groups was that we needed to take it from a Class A misdemeanor up to a Class E felony. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what this piece of legislation does, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Gillespie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, thank you so much. I carried that piece of previous legislation. It is a huge problem where I live and across the state, and I do believe that this will really make a big difference. I think a lot of times people don't realize that we're also talking about nonprofits with their church van that's inoperable because of thievery going on with the catalytic converters. So this happens to everyone and everywhere. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Chairman Doggett, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Sponsor, for this legislation. The theft of catalytic converters was a real epidemic in my community, and one weekend, several churchgoers went out to start their vans on a Sunday morning to the sound of a NASCAR race at Talladega because it was loud. And we had several thefts around, and people understand that there is a great value for that. And really, the question come up in sub about it, about the converters. You scrap them for a couple $100, but a couple years ago, one of my pickup trucks alone had 4 catalytic converters on them. All 4 of them had to be replaced, and we're talking thousands of dollars to replace that amount of catalytic converters. They're very expensive, and so I feel like this is a very appropriate bill, and appreciative of you for having the foresight to bring this.
Chairman Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the sponsor for this bill as well. As I was coming in today with Chairman Russell, he and I were going over the bills for committee, and this bill came up, and he said, I had some catalytic converters taken from where I park, and I was asking him, he enjoys parking here, but maybe he'll be able to park his apartment complex now, and I know he'll appreciate that. But thank you. But on a very serious note, these things are expensive. Not only is the piece expensive, but the time that it takes to replace it is expensive, and also the time that's taken out of people's lives to have their cars in the shop and to rent a vehicle is expensive as well. So this is a very good piece of legislation. Thank you so much.
Okay. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, sir. The first thing, I'd like you to join me in wishing Scotty Campbell a happy birthday. The second thing is to ask on how your bill impacts those dealers who accept stolen merchandise.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's a matter of fact, over the last couple of years, as we've tried to address this issue, and Representative Gillespie has ran some legislation that has a tremendous impact on the scrap metal dealers, and that was the first approach that we took, and we have kind of closed that loop up a little bit. And I could go through the list, but the bill that he passed actually became model legislation. It's being adopted around the country, and it requires that they register with the Department of Commerce and Insurance. They must provide when they buy from someone, they have to have a federally issued ID and a thumbprint, and they have to maintain it, proof that the person that sold it to them. They must be kept for 3 years. They cannot be paid in cash. Generally, the transaction of catalytic converters has to be between 2 registered scrap metal dealers. The person purchasing it must be a registered scrap metal dealer, and when you set up shop as a scrap metal dealer, you have to register with either the sheriff's department or the police department in the jurisdiction that you're operating in. So we have really tightened up on them. But at the end of the day, if you can't sell if you steal a catalytic converter but you can't sell it in Tennessee, you just drive to Kentucky. You drive to Alabama to sell it. So what we're trying to do is to really clamp down on the theft of it. We know that these are not really being acquired by scrap metal dealers in Tennessee anymore, so we're trying to close the loop completely up with really hammering the thief themselves.
Go ahead.
Is there any promising federal legislation?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not, and no, Representative, I'm not aware of anything at the federal level at this point.
All right, well, thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, thank you and happy birthday, Scotty Campbell.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, I was curious, I think I asked last time in subcommittee about is there any evidence that enhancements like this have done anything to prevent, does it help in stopping this problem? And I couldn't find anything myself, so I was just curious if you had found anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Representative, as I mentioned last week, really Tennessee became the leader in this part of the United States with the legislation that we passed a couple of years ago. A lot of other states are looking to us now, so we are really the first in this area to do something like this. I feel like it will then go to other states who are looking for us to lead on this. But if your question is, does ramping something up to a felony discourage the crime? I think there's evidence with a lot of different criminal codes with that regard. But if you're asking with regard to catalytic converters, we don't know because we've not done it yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations, by the way, Chairman. I've been down here 9 years, and there have never been 4 committee members thank me for running any bill. I'll just tell you, so you've done well.
Mr. Chairman, I will tell the committee, nothing says I like your bill like becoming a co-sponsor. So welcome any co-sponsorships there.
All right, I guess we're ready to vote on the bill. We're voting on House Bill 484. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. It moves on to finance.
Thank you, Chairman of the committee.
That brings us to House Bill 1008 by Chairman Grills. Where'd he go?
Motion. Second.
Chairman Grills, you have a motion and a second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too want to wish Scotty Campbell a happy birthday. House Bill 1008 adds that a course of conduct for the purpose of stalking includes one instance of placing an electronic tracking device on a person or in a person's property unless the electronic tracking device is placed by or at the direction of a law enforcement. I told the story last week of a young lady that came to me in my district that found a tracking device placed on her vehicle. It brought her a lot of discomfort, and it's my understanding that this is happening more often than not. We carried this legislation last year, but we did not get it funded, so the intention is to run it and get it through finance and hopefully get it funded. I'll be willing to take any questions if there is any.
Okay, Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on this particular piece of legislation, I've watched some of your work in other committees and quite frankly admired it. It's great. And I wanted to just know, is there anybody on this particular committee that you look up to or admire?
Yes, sir. Am I recognized?
His name's Bud Halsey. He's the chairman. Is that who you pointing at?
Yes, I'm just waiting to be
Okay,
recognized.
good. I'm just making sure we admire him, too. Is that who you admire in this committee?
Well, the list is so long, I hate to start running down that for the sake of time.
I just know that that's been a topic of discussion
And
in
it
your
comes from that
committee.
seat.
I wouldn't go any further than you've gone. You've done well up to here.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I think some of my colleagues might have some additional questions.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the sponsor, you were asked a direct question. You gave a very politicized answer for that by referring not to just one individual, but to an entire committee. So, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we roll this bill to the heel of the calendar.
Second.
There is a motion to second. All in favor say aye. Aye. I'm sorry, it's rolled to the heel. That puts us, I'd bail you out if I could. But that puts us to item number 5, House Bill 281 by Representative Baum. You have a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Halsey. And I think I've got an amendment, a new amendment for this bill. It's amendment number 4071.
That's what I'm showing, and there is a motion and a second on the amendment. Do you want to explain the amendment, or you want to put it on the bill first?
I guess I'd prefer to put it on the bill first.
All right, we're voting on Amendment 4071. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Already in state code, we have provisions where individuals can have some felonies and misdemeanors expunged from their records. But members of the Tennessee Municipal Judges Conference, these judges, municipal judges, believe that they do not have the authority to expunge municipal violations from court records in municipal courts. And so this is a bill that would provide these judges with the ability to expunge those kinds of municipal violations. You may wonder, what do we have in mind? These are things like parking tickets, perhaps traffic violations in a city. Could be a codes violation. It's violations of a municipal level that are on record in a municipal building. This bill would establish a set of procedures that would have to be satisfied before the violation could be expunged, but it does give these judges the ability to expunge.
Okay, you've heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? I guess just one, Representative Hardaway, you did order thin crust with extra cheese, didn't you?
Enough for the whole committee, sir.
Okay. We are on House Bill 281. We're voting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The bill passes, goes to calendar rules, sir.
Thank you all.
Ready? He wants to call him out. That's the last one on the calendar, isn't it? We have found our way to the end of the calendar, which brings us back to House Bill 1008 by Chairman Grills.
Move for adjournment.
You are recognized once again, and you have...
I renew my motion.
Previous question's been
I
called.
love you guys.
We're voting on House Bill 1008. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, sir. This goes to calendar? Finance, I'm sorry. It goes to finance.
Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
That's the end of the calendar. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right. We are going to adjourn the committee as far as that process goes. Going to go out, and we will hear a presentation by the public defenders. You are recognized, sir, and for the record, would you state your name, please?
Yes, hello, my name's Patrick Frogue. I'm the Executive Director of the Tennessee District Public Defenders Conference. And I appreciate the invitation to talk about what we do. I know I'm at the end of the calendar, so I will make this pretty brief, but I think it's pretty easy to explain. Tennessee is lucky to have a statewide public defender system. That's not true in a lot of states. It's not true in a lot of states around us. In 1986, there was a pilot project, and in 1989, it was adopted statewide. And our structure, whoever wrote the bill, wisely, in my opinion, made us mirror the District Attorney General's Conference. I'm sorry, this is Chelsea Curtis. She's the Deputy Executive Director, and you'll probably hear from her more than me on certain bills. But we mirror the District Attorney General's Conference. So we have a system of elected public defenders. That's fairly unusual. Florida has it, a couple of counties in Nebraska, a couple of counties in California. But we found over time that it really serves us well because what a public defender might want to do in one district is not the same as what they might want to do in another. Now, the two exceptions to that, Davidson County and Shelby County, when this system was created, already had local public defenders' offices that were county funded. So the state contributes to those, but they are still county offices. So if you're a Memphis public defender, you can say you're a member of the Public Defenders Conference. That's true, but you're a county employee. And the same thing with Davidson County. Davidson is elected on a 4-year cycle. The Memphis public defender is appointed by the mayor. But that's our general structure. Now we have 32 chief public defenders. We handle somewhere between 300 and 350,000 charges. That's usually 175 to 200,000 cases, new cases per year, not counting the ones we already have or the holdovers. We handle, occasionally I'll get a question about what percentage of the cases that you handle. And that's a hard question to answer because I don't know how many cases there are, particularly in General Sessions Court, but I can say we handle a large percentage. We handle most of the serious crimes. So I know, for example, in Davidson County, we're no longer handling all the driver's license cases, but if you look at the murders, we're handling most of them. We went through a period of time from, we added staff between 89 and now. We had a significant staff increase in 04 and 07, and then we really didn't add any staff between 07 and 17. And since 17, we've been able to make incremental progress asking for staff. Typically, I come in with a pretty good, healthy budget request, in my opinion, and we get some of it. That's been sort of the way we go. I think the administration knows, lots of you know, lots of folks know that we need more people. Our budget is about 90% salaries and benefits, so we don't spend money on anything except the people. There was a study in 2017, I want to say, the Supreme Court commissioned a task force. I know Leader Lamberth was on it, Senator Stevens was on it, that sort of looked at, is this the best way to deliver indigent defense? And I think the answer was a resounding yes. We don't handle every case because we can't handle cases where we have a conflict of interest. Those cases are handled by something called the Indigent Defense Fund. The AOC manages that. So if, typically we take, the general idea is if there's a murder case and two defendants, we would take the lead defendant. The Indigent Defense Fund would fund private counsel who would handle the second and third tier if there were more defendants. In the last few years, that incremental growth, we've been able to do some pretty good things, I think, with y'all's help. The first is we added an appellate division. Right now, if you're a DA and your case gets appealed, typically that appeal, well, not typically, always, that appeal is handled by the Attorney General's office. So we were able to look at that and say, with what could we do? How could we have our own appellate division? And we were able to mirror that with 6 lawyers because the big 4, well, really the big 3, Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville already had attorneys assigned to do appeals. So we were able to do that with, frankly, very little output of resources. 6 lawyers is not a lot, but we've been able to take all the appeals off of the district offices. We also started, I think 4 years ago, maybe 5, with grant-funded social workers. There was a little bit of extra money, and the Office of Criminal Justice Programs asked me what I'd like to do with it, and I said I'd like to try social workers in our offices, and that's been unbelievably successful. I think what we didn't, I knew there was a need. I didn't realize how much of a need, and the truth is we end up like a lot of your sheriffs. We didn't get into this to be mental health counselors, but because of the day-to-day work we do, we end up dealing with a lot of those issues. And when we have professionals who are trained, not everybody needs a social worker. Not everybody we represent's guilty, but some of the people that come in over and over and have some compelling need that's pushing them in, lack of a driver's license, a drug problem, a mental health problem. If we can address that, we can help the state, and we can address some of our caseload issues. We also last year finally were able to add, it was not in the administration budget, but we were able to pay for it out of equity, a training director. Right now we have no formal system of training. We actually outsource it to the Tennessee Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, but we're going to start bringing that in-house as of this year. I think what I like when I look at the Indigent Defense Fund, when I look at the private lawyers who are taking appointed cases, that's fine. I mean, they're licensed people, and I'm sure they're fine. But what I think a statewide public defender system gives you all is some transparency on our budget, some transparency on our caseload, and some accountability. I mean, I do get calls occasionally from local districts saying, hey, I've gotten a call from a constituent who doesn't think her son's being represented right. Can you help? And we're able to do that. So I think it's a good system. I think we have been historically, in my opinion, understaffed. There was there's a statute that says the comptroller should do a weighted caseload study. And up until 2007, the comptroller did that. And then at some point they said, look, nobody's given us any money to do this study and it's pretty intensive. So they stopped. I was able to go back and look at all those studies and at least pull the math component out of it and look at our weighted cases, which we're now counting. And, you know, I think 2 years ago I looked at it, and by one of the standards, we were 89 lawyers short statewide. By another one, we were 150. And those standards are from the 70s and the 90s, back before there were body cams, before there were dash cams, before there was the kind of voluminous discovery that we're getting now. So I don't think there's a really good argument that we're not historically understaffed. I'm happy that we're making incremental progress. We have 22 positions, 7 social workers of those 22, and 15 are not otherwise specified in the administration budget this year. We asked for a lot more, but I'm happy with what they gave us. And sort of that's our position, is we are trying to make incremental, sustainable growth without coming in here and hitting you guys with, you know, some crazy thing that you couldn't possibly fund. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. We have questions from the committee. Representative Fritz, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time today. Do you have an idea of what the average caseload is for your PDs across the state and what that equates to and how much time that defender gets to spend with the client?
I mean, I've done this a lot of different ways. If you were to look at just the number of cases divided by the number of lawyers statewide, then you would say 3 to 4 hours per case per lawyer. But I don't think that, honestly, you can say that, and I hate for anybody to walk away with that as a judge, because I don't think it's right. I mean, I don't think that's how Memphis and Nashville are going to be very different than the 9th Judicial District in how they process cases, how they move through the system. The standards I was talking about, the national standards from the Department of Justice in like 1972, was 150 felonies per year or 400 misdemeanors was the caseload that they were targeting. Tennessee re-looked at that in '99 and had a consultant group come in and said, well, the way we do it is a little bit different. We could up that to 233 and 500. But if you think about what that means, you know, 233 cases, felony cases, I don't think there are 233 working days. If you take off weekends in a year, there might be. But, you know, you're asking a lot of a lawyer to, we don't do what DAs do. And DAs do a lot, and I'm a big advocate, but we all need more resources. They need more. Just as an aside, if you walk into a general sessions courtroom in your district, most of them, I don't think you see a lot of victims walking away feeling like that process, they were really heard. Because it's big, they handle a lot of cases, and I think we have defendants in the same boat. So I'm an advocate for resources for all of our agencies. However, what we do is a little bit different because we don't have a police force. So typically we don't get to interview, I mean, we have to interview our own client, we have to go interview all the witnesses, and that, you know, it's a little bit different. But I can't, it's hard for me to give you a better, I can give you an answer by county or by district that's closer to that, but we're handling, I want to say double that lower standard right now. And you know, we're doing a pretty good job at it, and we're adding resources every year, which is good, but I think we're still a little short of the mark.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One follow-up question to that. I've spoken with Ms. Nelson in our judicial district about this matter, and the social workers. How does that help your capacity within the public defender's office? Can you give us some examples of how that social worker has made a difference to maybe even increase the time that your people get to spend with their clients?
Sure, and that office was one that really pioneered. They really showed us what a social worker could do. The social worker in that district, and now that social worker is sort of in charge of all of them, but they're able to take some of the, I mean, we do a lot of social work. So, for example, if I represent a client who's charged with, you know, multiple thefts and can't stop it because they're financing a drug habit, you know, one thing I would want to do as their lawyer, I mean, just even if I didn't care about people, even for the case, I would want to address that drug problem. I would want to go to the DA and say, I found them housing, I found them a drug treatment program, I found them, whatever else is in their way. Social workers, that's what they go to college for. They learn techniques to be able to do that, and hopefully they become experts in their district of what resources are available. That takes it all off the lawyer. So it really helps us be more of what we're better at, being legal technicians more than social workers.
One last question. Do we have any data that shows a reduction in the recidivism or the repeat crimes after introducing the social worker into the process?
We do. I can tell you there was a study out of the University of Tennessee College of Social Work a few years ago, and there are multiple studies from Kentucky that show that. But we actually have also contracted a few years ago now with Harvard. They have a lab where they do actual, sort of the gold standards of studies, where they go in and do a blind study. And we participated in that for 3 years, where 3 of our judicial districts didn't have enough social workers to go around. So they started tracking the clients who got social work services and those that didn't get social work services. And now they're tracking them for recidivism. But I think they're a year or 2 away from reporting anything. There is data out there. There's better data coming, I guess, is the short answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank y'all for coming and visiting with us today. And the previous representative had looked at my notes from across the room, because those were several of the questions that I was going to ask. But I would like to go back to, you mentioned earlier in your presentation about how you mirror the district attorney's conference in those offices. Do you have a comparison as far as like staffing goes? I know you look at caseloads and things like that, but per district, is it comparable to staffing in each of the judicial districts, or do they vary across the state as to how many, public defenders that you have and assistants and those that are support staff in those offices in comparison to the district attorneys?
So the answer is it varies widely. In order for us to get a new position, we really need 2 things. We need money and we need position authority. And over the years, that process has played out the way things play out. Some districts, they're pretty evenly matched. Some districts, there's a lot more assistant district attorneys. So I would say it varies widely. It's part of the political process, so it does vary.
And you had mentioned there was 22 positions that you were asking for in the budget. Are those going to go to designated areas that you see that, we are shorthanded, and are they going to be attorneys, or will they be other staff, or?
So the administration budget designated 22 of those 22, 7 to be social workers, and 15 to be whatever we needed. We had asked for a lot more than that, and if they gave us exactly what we asked for, I could tell you exactly where they were going to go, because it was based on that. But when they give us, a third of what we asked for, we have to now go back and figure out what takes priority. That's what we did last year. So right this minute, since the budget isn't that old, I can't tell you, and it's not done. I can't tell you exactly where they're going to go. We typically wait until the budget passes, then get together as a group and talk about it and figure out priority. And the priority, you would like to just look at caseload and do a math problem. But of course, judicial districts are different. Some have geographic problems, or not problems. Some have geographic diversity. Some are single county. So we look at all that and sort of vote as a group as to where they're going to go.
And in a perfect world, how many more positions would you need to say that every judicial district across the state, we are fully staffed and operational and ready to go? What would that look like? How many more positions would you need?
We asked for 59 this year, and that was the extent of the need as defined by the public defenders. Those were not all lawyers. So the short answer to your question is, well, I don't really have a short answer to your question. I think the answer is, my guess is that those 15 not specified positions will turn into lawyers, because that's the greatest need. And then that will also necessitate next year somebody saying, I got too many lawyers and no secretaries. So I would imagine there's probably about what we asked for, frankly.
Okay.
But I'm not sure of that, and
I was just curious, but thank y'all for coming. I know it's late on a Tuesday afternoon, and it's been a long day for everyone, but I just want to say thank you very much for coming and meeting with us today.
thank you very much for listening.
Representative Towns.
As well, thank you for coming and the work that you do. My question is, if you strapped for personnel like that, be it lawyer, staff, or whatever it is, how is it possible for you to really give every case what you need to give it? How can you give across the state or wherever a fair fight for people without having the resources?
I don't have a great answer to that question. I mean, that's the reason I keep asking is, we do our best. And in some cases that involves some triage and whatever, but I don't have a great answer to that question. I think, I know politically spending money on public defenders is not usually folks' top priority. It's just not. But I'm here every year asking because I don't like the answer to that question.
Well, as you should be, sir. You should be here every year advocating for what you think you need to give and provide the services that's guaranteed in our Constitution for people to be defended. Right or wrong, your office shares that burden, and it's a heavy load, a very heavy load. So don't be bashful about coming and asking for what it is, exactly what you need in order to defend your office and what it is you think you should be able to do. Now, that brings me to another part of the question. How many people, and this may or may not have this, out of all the clients that you have, how many people you think, what percentage of your people are pleading guilty a year out of all those cases?
A high percentage. I don't know the percentage. I've seen bandied about, and I think this is just sort of nationally, and it fits with my experience, is somewhere around 90 to 95%. I don't know what percentage of that are pleading guilty to lesser crimes. My experience, I was an assistant public defender in Nashville and then in private practice doing only criminal defense really for a long time. And that fits my experience, is that 90 to 95% of cases don't end in a trial, but end in some sort of plea agreement, typically with some incentive, some lesser charges.
And I've heard that as much as to that number. Now, just imagine this. If that case load that you had began to be about 30% pleading guilty, what that would do for your need of manpower. Okay. And also because in the community you hear a lot of things. And like you work for the community, I work for citizens as well. And you hear a lot of things, and especially as things come out within our judicial system, how many people are pleading guilty that are not guilty. They don't want to, they're afraid to fight, or they don't have the resources to fight, and they plead guilty. Okay, right or wrong. And people, as we've seen, plead guilty to some stuff they never did because they're thinking that's going to shorten their time or not give them any time to study another, which can be a tragedy, especially if it's your child or your friend, neighbors, what have you. We don't fund it like we should. You should always ask for what you need and paint the picture of what it is that's happening in our society for real, and put it on the onus on us to do what we say on paper that we're supposed to be doing. And that's allowing everybody to have their day in court. And like I said, it's a tough job, and I know you're underfunding. I know very well you're underfunding across the state or whatever city you reside in. I know you are, and I know you're doing the best you can with what you have. But you still got to paint the picture. Don't sugarcoat the picture for us. You have to tell us the real nitty-gritty of what it is. You're in the trenches. You really are in the trenches. You're really in the trenches of something that's important to this country, that real. So just however hard it may be, paint the picture and hang in there, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Farmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you for coming in front of the committee to explain to members what's going on. I think some members have a pretty good idea. And I was just looking around trying to think of the districts that I haven't been in. Some out in Memphis-ish I probably haven't been in, but I've been in Kim Nelson's district. I've been in Clay Dawzik's district over there. Well, no, I haven't been in Gillespie's, but I've witnessed the hard work of the public defenders there. So whatever's happening, it's not for a lack of hard work. It's not for a lack of zealous representation. It's not for a lack of them staying after 5 o'clock and working hard at their jobs. And it's not for the lack of their caringness and their ability to care and sympathize and be empathetic towards their clients, because I know all that's there. And it's amazing what we've been able to do, and the members of your organization have been able to do and are continuing to do with the resources that you have. And I'm 100% behind you all for your ask for additional resources, because out of the many places that this state has that do not waste resources, and we're very, very lucky, you're on that list. Your organization is 100% on that list. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate both of y'all for your representation for the public defenders across this state. You do a wonderful job, and I want to commend all the public defenders, all the assistant public defenders that are out there working very hard for their clients. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I sure know you have a competent associate up in Sullivan County that I appreciate a whole lot. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to you. And I've got friends who are PDs, and I know you have to have a heart for it. And to be good at it, you certainly have to have the experience and the competence. What I've never been able to figure out is why it was okay for public defenders to have to deliver justice on the cheap. And that's whether we're talking about your salaries or whether we're talking about the compensation for the private legal help for defendants that you you're not able to represent. Can you comment on that?
I'm not sure which part, really. Why do we do it on the cheap? I mean, we do it because I don't know many assistant public defenders who aren't called to do it, who just do it for a job. But I think the other questions you were asking maybe weren't for me. I don't know. In terms of the Indigent Defense Fund, how they're funded, that comes from the Administrative Office of the Courts, and I better leave it to them to answer those kind of questions. But, that's, as I said to Representative Towns, the reason and I've had a lot of conversations about this, the reason I made that a priority when I took this job was if you go to a public defender's conference, we have one every October where all the lawyers come in, and if you say, what's your number one problem? If you don't say other than resources, that's the answer you're going to get. And it's not about Post-it notes or pens or any of that stuff. It's about enough people to handle the cases that come in. And, that's what I'm always here, frankly, asking for, is more people to handle the cases that come in. And I think right now, just anecdotally, I don't have any stats to back me up, but I have heard that it's becoming harder and harder for judges to find private lawyers who will take the appointments, because I think their rate is $50 an hour. That includes their overhead, and there's a cap of, I think, $2,500 on that. So they're being paid, painfully low, and all the incentives are for them to not work. And we're over here, doing our thing with too many cases. So that's why I'm here. I mean, I don't have great answers for these questions. Why do we do it this way, or why has it become this way? But as an introduction, that's why I'm here and why I'm asking, and once in a while somebody asks the question, what would be enough? And I don't know, but we're not there, we asked for what we thought we desperately needed this year, but if we got everything we asked for, would that look good enough? I can't say that yet, you know.
And I would, if I can venture into this discussion with a little bit more than, less than facts and more opinion. It seems when we think about the defendant, in the public's eyes, it's more or less you're guilty until proven innocent, no matter what the Constitution or your intentions are in representing that individual fairly and justly. That tends to color the way that we look at defendants. So maybe that influences our reluctance to deliver fair resources to the public defenders so you can deliver fair representation. I know you do your best, but I have a son that's a lawyer, so I'm around a lot of young lawyers. And man, the $50 an hour with the competition out there today for good lawyers, it's hard to get the experience unless you come in and do the work at that low rate. But there should be, in my eyes, there should be some equity, and equity is what you deserve as opposed to equality. Everybody get the same. There should be some equity in how the public defenders are able to get what they deserve in order to give fair representation, put the time in on the case, be able to fight the charges when necessary. A lot of times, I know it's going to make sense to reach some type of settlement, but having seen this for years, I'm not comfortable with where we are. I think when we look at some of the problems in reforming our justice system, and we look at some of the defendants and how they keep the recidivism itself, I think some of that starts with how they are being represented, how much time can you put in, how many other resources, wraparound services can you bring to bear, dealing with the families and the other situations. So I'll say to my colleagues that if we're talking about true justice reform, that we've got to pay more attention to the public defender's office, delivering the resources, delivering the funding, so you can do your job as well as our prosecutors are able to do their job. So thank you for what you do. Thank you, ma'am, for being here and what you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just like everybody else said, appreciate you, appreciate the public defenders across Tennessee. And I did have a question. Do the public defender's offices across Tennessee have private investigators?
Some do. We have, the idea is that we do. Over the years, some of those investigative slots will turn in, we will put a lawyer in that slot. And the reason is, for example, every time we start a drug court or a new court or whatever, we have to staff it typically with a lawyer. So there are districts where we didn't have enough lawyers to actually handle the cases, and we're doing without investigators. We do have some investigators, but I know there are counties, districts. I'm thinking of a 7-county district with 1 investigator, and that's common. It's not like we have a fleet. I think we have 35 total in the state for 32 judicial districts.
I noticed earlier you mentioned that the DA's office has investigators and some of your office didn't. So I just wondered if that's a crucial role for your offices to have private investigators and what they provide to the office, but I think you all need them.
So we have, ideally, even at the number of lawyers we had, we would be a lot better if we had investigators, secretaries, and social workers. Some offices have 2 secretaries for 5 counties. One district I'm thinking of runs Kentucky to Alabama with 5 counties, and there's an office manager and a secretary. So the lawyers get used to not having a secretary. I mean, the secretaries work really hard, but they can't handle the caseload of 5 lawyers. I don't think there's an investigator in that district, but I might be wrong. And for us, the investigators are not, I mean, all those people take work that the lawyers are doing and allow us to be lawyers.
I hope you get what you need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to come back, but I have to. Each of us members here, we certainly know how difficult it is to work without a legislative assistant, an intern or somebody. You can't do the cotton picking work, period. Can't keep up with the deadlines. You can't do it. Don't know where to go. It's an impossibility. Lawyers' work is like, okay? Deadlines are important. Accuracy is important. Timeliness, all this is important. It's critical to a case. And it's really unacceptable. I just encourage you again, you got to speak at it loudly, clearly, so we can understand. I'm going to ask you a question. An entry lawyer, which as a PD, public defender, what do we offer them as a starting salary?
So we're on a salary scale which moves every year from entry level up to, I think, a 25-year lawyer. And I think entry level, the last time I looked, was $55,000. We match the DAs, so we're on the same, not by statute, we just happen to have the same salary scale. That's important because if you pay them more, we're going to go work for them. Not me, but some of them will. So we start at 55, and I think I don't remember what the top end is.
So, Mr. Chairman, I want y'all to hear what he just said. You got a lawyer that's going to school, has all this debt, and they're going to take a job for $55,000. You got to be insane to think that you're going to get the best lawyers, enough lawyers for $55,000 a year. That's not right. It's simply not right. On the end of our spectrum of people that should be held in the highest esteem from the way we categorize stuff in this country, $55,000, that's an insult. And we need to look at it. We need a comprehensive look at this program and see what we're not doing. But you're not going to give $55,000 an hour. You can make that anywhere. We're going to have to do some digging, some looking. You have to paint this picture so we can really see what's going on. Unacceptable. And Mr. Chairman, at some point, I'm going to suggest we look at something comprehensively and try to get this thing fixed. This is broken. He's real gentle with the matter, real committed with his team, and the people are committed to settle, but they're not getting paid enough money, and we don't have enough resources to do the job. And as leaders, we need to look at how to fix it. We need to fix it in short order. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I sure appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
All right. Let's go back in session. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion. Adjourned.
Good work.